out to the street, but he simply did not recognize it at all. He just kept his tender, deferential manner, and smiled down at her with that wonderful, exalted look that made her dignity seem cheap, so there was nothing to do but look up as a flower would to the sun, and be true to the best that was in her heart. She was surprised to find his own car at the door when they came out on the street. He must have phoned for it before they left the station. He was so kind and thoughtful. It was so wonderful to her to be cared for in this way. Just as if I were a rich girl in his own social set, she thought to herself. He gave his chauffeur the orders and sat beside her in the back seat, continuing his role of admirer and protector. " It certainly is great to think you're here beside me," he said in a low tone as they threaded their way in and out of the crowded thoroughfare toward the office. " I didn't have a very pleasant afternoon and evening yesterday, I can tell you. I don't think we'll let you go off on any more such errands. You're too precious to risk in peril like that, you know." Shirley's cheeks were beautiful to behold as she tried to lift her eyes easily to his glance and take his words as if they had been a mere commonplace; but there was something deep down in the tone of his voice, and something intent and personal in his glance, that made her drop her eyes swiftly and covered her with a sweet confusion. They were at the office almost immediately, and Graham was helping her out. " Now, when will you be through here ?" he asked, glancing at his watch. " What train are you planning to take down to the shore? I suppose you'll want to get back as soon as possible." " Yes," said Shirley doubtfully, " I do. But I don't know whether I oughtn't to run out home first and get mother's big old shawl, and two or three other little things we ought to have brought along." " No," said Graham quickly, with a flash of anxiety in his face. " I wouldn't if I were you. They'll be anxious to see you, and if it's necessary you can run up again sometime. I think you'll find there are lots of shawls down at the cottage. I'm anxious to have you safely landed with your family once more. I promised Carol you'd be down the first train after you got your work done. How long is it going to take you to fix Mr. Barnard up so he can run things without you?" " Oh, not more than 2 hours, I should think, unless he wants something more than I know." " Well, 2 hours. It is 9:30 now. We'll say 2 hours and a half. That ought to give you time. I think there's a train about then. I'll phone to the station and find out, and let you know the exact time. The car will be here waiting for you." " Oh, Mr. Graham, that's not a bit necessary. You have taken trouble enough for me already," protested Shirley. " No trouble at all," declared Graham. " My chauffeur hasn't a thing to do but hang around with the car this morning, and you might as well ride as walk. I'll phone you in plenty of time." He lifted his hat and gave her a last look that kept the glow in her cheeks. She turned and went with swift steps into her elevator. Sidney Graham dropped his chauffeur at the station to inquire about trains and get tickets, with orders to report at his office within an hour, and himself took the wheel. Quickly working his way out of the city's traffic, he put on all possible speed toward Glenside. He must get a glimpse of things and see that all was going well before he went to the office. What would Shirley have said if she had carried out her plan of coming out for her mother's shawl? He must put a stop to that at all costs. She simply must not see the old barn till the work was done, or the whole thing would be spoiled. Strange it had not occurred to him that she might want to come back after something. Well, he would just have to be on the continual lookout. For one thing, he would stop at a store on the way back and purchase a couple of big steamer rugs and a long, warm cloak. He could smuggle them into the cottage somehow, and have the servants bring them out for common use, as if they belonged to the house. He was as eager as a child over every little thing that had been started during his absence, and walked about with the boss carpenter, settling 2 or 3 questions that had come up the day before. In 10 minutes he was back in his car, whirling toward the city again, planning how he could best get those rugs and cloaks into the hands of the housekeeper at the shore without anybody suspecting that they were new. Then it occurred to him to take them down to Elizabeth and let her engineer the matter. There must be 2 cloaks, one for Shirley, for he wanted to take her out in the car sometimes, and her little scrap of a coat was entirely too thin even for summer breezes at the shore. Shirley met with a great ovation when she entered the office. It was evident that her fame had gone before her. Mr. Barnard was already there, smiling benevolently, and Mr. Clegg frowning approvingly over his spectacles at her. The other office clerks came to shake hands or called congratulations, till Shirley was quite overwhelmed at her reception. Clegg and Barnard both followed her into the inner office and continued to congratulate her on the bravery she had shown, and to express their appreciation of her loyalty and courage in behalf of the firm. Mr. Barnard handed her a check for $100 as a slight token of their appreciation of her work, telling her that beginning with the first of the month her salary was to be raised. When at last she sat down to her typewriter and began to click out the wonderful notes that had made so much trouble and put them in shape for practical use, her head was in a whirl and her heart was beating with a childish ecstasy. She felt as if she were living a real fairy tale and would not ever be able to get back to common everyday life again. At 11:30 Graham called her up to tell her there was a train a little after 12 if she could be ready, and the car would be waiting for her in 15 minutes. When she finally tore herself away from the smiles and effusive thanks of Barnard and Clegg and took the elevator down to the street, she found Sidney Graham himself awaiting her eagerly. This was a delightful surprise, for he had not said anything about coming himself, or mentioned when he would be coming back to the shore, so she had been feeling that it might be some time before she would see him again. He had just slammed the door of the car and taken his seat beside her when a large gray limousine slowed down beside them, and a radiant, well-groomed, much-tailored young woman leaned out of the car smiling at Graham, and passing over Shirley with one of those unseeing stares wherewith some girls know so well how to erase other girls. " Oh, Sidney, I'm so glad I met you !" she cried. " Mother has been phoning everywhere to find you. We are out at our country place for a couple of weeks, and she wants to ask you to come over this afternoon for a little tennis tournament we are having, with a dance on the lawn afterward." " That's very kind of you, Harriet," said Graham pleasantly, " but I can't possibly be there. I have an engagement out of town for this afternoon and evening. Give my regards to your mother, please, and thank her for the invitation. I know you'll have a lovely time. You always do at your house." " Oh, that's too bad, Sidney !" pouted the girl. " Why will you be so busy? And in the summer time, too! You ought to take a vacation. Well, if you can't come to night, you'll run down over the week end, won't you? We are having the Foresters and the Harveys. You like them, and we simply can't do without you." " Sorry," said Graham smilingly, " but I've got all my week ends filled up just now. Harriet, let me introduce you to Miss Hollister. Miss Hale, Miss Hollister." Then did Harriet Hale have to take over her unseeing stare and acknowledge the introduction, somewhat stiffly it must be acknowledged, for Harriet Hale did not enjoy having her invitations declined, and she could not quite place this girl with the lovely face and the half shabby garments that yet had somehow an air of having been made by a French artist. " I'm sorry, Harriet, but we'll have to hurry away. We're going to catch a train at 12:15. Hope you have a beautiful time this afternoon. Remember me to Tom Harvey and the Foresters. Sorry to disappoint you, Harriet, but you see I've got my time just full up at present. Hope to see you soon again." They were off, Shirley with the impression of Harriet Hale's smile of vinegar and roses, the roses for Graham, the vinegar for her. Shirley's heart was beating wildly underneath her quiet demeanor. She had at last met the wonderful Harriet Hale, and Graham had not been ashamed to introduce her. There had been protection and enthronement in his tone as he spoke her name. It had not been possible for Miss Hale to patronize her after that. Shirley was still in a daze of happiness. She did not think ahead. She had all she could do to register new occurrences and emotions, and realize that her joy was not merely momentary. It had not occurred to her to wonder where Graham was going out of town. It was enough that he was here now. When they reached the station Graham took two large packages out of the car and gave some directions to the chauffeur. " Sorry we couldn't have gone down in the car again," he said as they walked into the station, " but it needs some repairs, and I don't want to take as long a run as that until it has been thoroughly overhauled." Then he was going down too. He had declined Harriet Hale's invitation to go back to the cottage with her. Shirley's breath came in little happy gasps as she walked beside her companion down the platform to the train. She found herself presently being seated in a big green velvet chair in the parlor car, while the porter stowed away the two big packages in the rack overhead. Chapter 27.